Hi guys, it's Sophie from Just Fabrics. Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 really easy back to school makes. For this make we used the Fullstop fabric in the Larkspur colourway and the Bonbon colourway, and you'll also need scissors, pinking shears, a ruler, poppers, thread, a pen, some chalk, a sewing machine and some pegs. The first thing you need to do will be to cut out the front pieces. We're using a contrasting fabric for the front and the side pieces. So your front pieces need to be 7 inches by 12 inches and you're going to cut 2 of these out. Now you've got your front pieces cut out, we're going to use the contrasting fabric to cut out the side pieces. The side pieces need to be 4.5 inches by 12 inches and you're going to cut 2 of these out. You're also going to need to cut out a bottom piece. You can choose whether you do this in the same fabric as the sides or the same fabric as the front. We're going to use the same fabric as the sides. The bottom piece needs to be 4.5 inches by 7 inches. The next thing we're going to do is trim the top of the bag pieces with a pair of pinking shears. This just gives a nicer edge to the fabric when the bag is open. The next thing we're going to do is attach the poppers to the top of the bag. So what you need to do is separate each piece and you're going to attach one side to the front piece and one side to the back piece. The poppers need to be attached on the front 1 3/4 inches from the sides and 3.5 inches down from the top. Once you've measured out where the poppers need to go, you can make a small pen mark, as this won't be seen once the poppers are sewn in. Now that you've measured out and marked where the snaps need to go, you just want to use a needle and thread to stitch through the oilcloth. It can be quite thick, so you might want to use a thimble. For the back panel, you want to put the poppers the same width in, so 1 3/4 inches in from the side, but you're going to want to put them only 3/4 of an inch down from the top. So the next thing we need to do is attach the bottom piece to the front fabric. So we're going to do this with right sides together. We're going to use pegs, or if you've got sewing clips, that would be good to use those, just because when you pin the vinyl or oilcloth, it does make holes in the fabric, so it's better off if you can avoid this. The next thing we're going to do is sew along this line. We're going to start 1/4 inch in from the end, and we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we're also going to stop 1/4 inch from this end as well, making sure to lock the stitches at either end. It's a good idea to increase the stitch length on your machine, so to reduce the perforations in the fabric. The next thing you need to do is attach the side pieces to the bottom as well. So again, we're putting right sides together, making sure that the edge we've cut with the pinking shears is at the top, and we're going to do that for both sides and then stitch it. Now we've got all of the pieces attached to the bottom, what we're going to do is take each corner and peg them all together and then stitch them up. Now that you've stitched all the sides together, you want to cut away any of the loose threads and then carefully turn it the right side out. It's quite stiff fabric, so this might take a while. Just be careful on the seams because they're quite narrow. And now you have your finished lunchbox bag. For this make you will need 2 contrasting fabrics. We are using the Larkspur in sage and the Gingham in mustard. You'll also need some elastic, a button or a cover button, a sewing machine, scissors, some chalk, some pencils or pens, an iron, pins and a ruler. The first thing you need to do is to use your outer fabric and cut 2 pieces which are 10 inches by 17 inches. Once you've cut your face fabric, you then need to cut a piece of your inner fabric, which is going to be the slots for your pens and pencils, and that also needs to be 10 by 17 inches. The first thing you need to do is to take the pocket piece and fold it in half with the raw edges towards you and iron along the fold. This is going to be your pocket piece, so once you've done this, you need to take one piece of your face fabric and lay the pocket piece flat at the bottom, lining up the bottom edges. So once you've lined all the edges up, you're going to pin along the side, all the way along the bottom, and then down the other side, and then we're going to stitch it. So the next thing you need to do is to mark out all the pockets for your pens and pencils. We're going to make them 1 inch wide, and then we're going to have 2 at either end, which will be 2 inches wide for any of the larger items. Now that we've marked all of the positions for our pockets, we're going to stitch all along all of the lines. Make sure you backstitch at the top of them to make sure that it's going to be nice and reinforced to when you're putting your pens in and out. The next thing we're going to do is attach the final outer piece to the pocket piece, and we're also going to put the elastic in place. You can either use a small piece of flat elastic, rolled elastic, or if you have a small hair tie, that will also work. So we're going to lay the right sides together of the fabric, aligning up all the edges. So if you're using cut elastic, make sure that the elastic sits on the inside of the fabric when you pin it in, so that when you turn the fabric inside out, it will be on the right hand side. Turn the pencil case right side out, press the edges, and then stitch all the way around to finish it off. Next, you need to attach the button to the outside of the pencil case. You can either use a button that you've got from a haberdashery store. We're using a covered button. We will link a tutorial for this in the description or above. Once you're ready to sew the button on, what you need to do is put the pens and pencils that you're going to be using into the pencil case and then roll it up so that you'll be able to see exactly where to stitch the button onto. So we're going to use a pen to mark that in a minute. And now you have your finished pencil case. For this make, we're using the Elmore fabric in cornflower and the JF ticking in burnt orange. You will also need some bias binding, a sewing machine, some scissors, some chalk, a ruler, pins, and some acrylic interlining. So the first thing we need to do is cut out these squares of our fabrics. We're using 2 contrasting fabrics and an interlining, and each of the squares is going to be 8.5 inches. You can also use pre-quilted fabric if you need to, but we're going to use the interlining in this case. Now you've got your 3 pieces cut out, we're going to quilt them together. If you've got a quilter's rule, this will be really easy. If not, we're going to just use a ruler. So if you don't have a quilter's rule, I'm just going to use the width of the ruler to create the quilting. So line up your 3 pieces and go from one corner to the next, marking with some chalk where your lines are going to be, and these will be your stitch lines. Once you've marked all the lines, you just need to stitch along each of them. Once you've quilted your fabric, you're going to put bias binding onto one edge, so you need to decide which side of the fabric you want to use for your outer edge, and then pin and stitch the bias binding onto one of the edges. Now you need to stitch along the pinned edge Once you've stitched one side of the bias binding, you want to just fold it over and pin the other side and then stitch exactly the same as you did before. Once you've stitched the bias binding on, you're going to fold this piece down 1 3/4 inches. You want to make sure that the bit that you're folding down, the way that it folds is going to be the inside or the outside of the fabric, so you want to decide which is which. Once you've decided which side is going to be the front, we're using the striped side as our lining and the geometric side as our outer fabric. Use the pins to pin along the edge, and this will hold in place. Once you've used the pins to hold the fold in place, we're going to fold right sides together lengthways and pin and stitch down the long edge and down the bottom. As an optional step, you can add bias binding to this long edge here to tidy it up. So I'm going to pin the bias binding on now and stitch it all together. Once you've stitched one side of the bias binding, you want to just pin down the other side and stitch the same as the other side. Zigzag stitch the bottom to keep it nice and tidy. Turn the right side out. Thanks for watching, we hope you enjoyed this one. We've got lots more makes on the website and on social media.